Okay, good morning, everyone. Before we go to our tefillah discussions, we'll very short Dvar Torah word that happened to think of on Friday, this past Friday, and it connects to Lag Baomer, which is coming up at the end of this week, Wednesday evening, Thursday, and it's short and hopefully sweet. So I think it's worthwhile to repeat it. Very famously and unfortunately tragic last year, we light bonfires on the eve of Lag Baomer. What's the reason for this custom? Why do we do that? Besides pollution that it creates, why should we do this? So many answers were given. Some explain it as being a ner neshama for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He passed away on Lag Baomer. And same as we light the Yortzeit candle, which is a small little flame of 24 hours, for the size of the neshama that Rashbi had, such a huge neshama, his Yortzeit candle is a bonfire. That's a way to explain that, the idea behind it. Another way to explain is that on the day that he died, which again was Lag Baomer, he revealed his entire hidden Torah, the Kabbalah, the Torah that he spent a lot of time learning. The entire Torah he revealed in one day to his closest student, Rabbi Abba. He was the only one left in the room while he was dying. And in a few hours, he was able to pass over his entire Torah. Obviously, it was in a spiritual way. It wasn't by speaking, like from mind to mind, flowed into Rabbi Abba. And amongst other things, there was the Zohar. The book of the Zohar was written by Rashbi, or Shur Bar Yochai. It was only found many, many centuries later. But we believe that Rabbi Shur Bar Yochai wrote the Zohar. And the Zohar is the most important book in the hidden Torah, the parts of Kabbalah of the Torah. And the word Zohar means Zoher. Zoher is light. It's light. Shines bright. So the shining Torah is the Torah Shebenistar. It's the hidden parts of the Torah that really shines if one is involved and learns that part of Torah. So the fires resemble the bright light that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai brought to our world the day he died by revealing his hidden Torah to Rabbi Abba. And by the way, physically, it says that there was a Amuda de Nura, a pillar of fire around his bed when he passed away. That also can be the resemblance that we do the bonfires on Lag Baomer. Others say that it's connected to Bar Kochba and his wars. It was around that time that the wars of Bar Kochba took place, and they used to light fires to signal to each other where they are. So maybe that's connected to that. Many different reasons behind the fires, the bonfires we light on the eve of Lag Baomer. On Friday, it occurred to me another way to explain it. We find this amongst maybe hundreds of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's sayings in the Talmud, in the Gemara, where he appears as Rabbi Shimon. Many times just Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Sometimes he's mentioned this way or that, but it's hundreds of times that he appears in the Mishnayos and Braisos all over the Talmud. But one of his most important and fundamental sayings in the Talmud is in Bava Metzia Nun Tet 59a, where he's quoted by saying the following: Amar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Noach lo la'adam shi'apil atzmo lekivshan ha'esh ve'yalbin pnei chavero barabim. To embarrass someone in public is worse than dying, meaning one has to die and not embarrass someone in public. Give up your life. Some Rishonim, and most poskim hold that this is literally true. If someone holds a gun to your head and says, either you embarrass someone in public right now, or I kill you, you let him kill you. It's like Yagval Yavor. So everyone asks the question, so how come we don't have 4 Yagval Yavors? Avodah Zara, Gilui Arayos, Shvichus Damim, and Malbim Techavo Barabim. It should have been 4. So some say that it's included within, Shvichus Damim. Hi. Shvichus Damim. What's that? Parking, yeah, because of the bris. Okay, you do. Smachos. Shvichus Damim includes Malbim Techavo Barabim. Why is that true? Because Malbim become all white. You become white like a sheet. If someone embarrasses you in public, you're all white. You first become red, and then you lose all your blood. What? Exactly. Rains out of your face. Exactly. Right. Shaken, humiliated terribly. So that's like shvichus damim. Like your blood was poured out, runs out of your face. So it's similar to that. So some say it's under that category. And Tosfos explained that it's not written as one of the 4 Yagval Yavors because it's not explicit in Torah like the other 3. But it's the same halacha. Halachically, they're the same status. So it's very terrible. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai learns this from Tamar, the wife of the 2 sons of Yehuda. She married Er and then Onan, and they both died. And before marrying Sheila, Yehuda said, wait a minute, this doesn't look good. every son of mine you marry dies, so let's wait a while. In the meantime, he has relations with her, and he has 2 children. She has 2 children, Zerach and Peretz. Who in the end, Peretz was the forefather of David HaMelech. So when Yehuda finds out that Tamar is pregnant, and she was meant to be for his 3rd child, Sheila, so he says it's to burn her because she committed adultery by relations with a man. And she knew that it was none other than Yehuda who made her pregnant. So she didn't say, well, it's you, Yehuda, who made me pregnant, who got me pregnant. She said, she took 3 artifacts from Yehuda when she had relations with him, and she said, now, whoever this belongs to, he's the one that I'm pregnant to. And he admitted that it's him. Tzadkayimeni. That's why his name is Yehuda, with the word Hoda, to admit. Which is very big of him also because he was one of the leaders of the generation then. He was looked up upon, and to admit such a terrible sin is something very brave on Yehuda's part. But anyhow, so why didn't she just say it's Yehuda? Why do you want to kill me? Why do you want to kill me and burn me? What? No parking? Yeah.
I blocked your car.
No problem. Yeah.
I just looked at it.
Because they're the same car, right? The same car.
I also knew it was your car.
Right.
You were going.
That's true.
I went around first.
Anyhow, so from here we learn, Rashbi takes from here that Tamar wouldn't say who it was in order not to embarrass Yehuda, but she would have been dead. If he wouldn't admit, she would have been burnt alive. So from here we learn, better that you're thrown into a fire and don't embarrass someone in public. That's where we learn it from. Now going back to Lag Baomer, so I thought maybe the idea of the fact that we make these big bonfires in Lag Baomer is to remind us of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's say. He was the one who said it, Shas, that we are willing to burn ourselves and not humiliate someone in public. This is the fire. This is the ish. This is the fire. We're up to that level, on that level that we will not humiliate someone in public. So if that's the reason, then it fits very well the end of the morning over the 24,000 Talmidim, students of Rabbi Akiva, before teaching these 5 other students in the south, which one of them was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a new Torah that was more real. So the 24,000 died They did not respect one another, meaning they were embarrassing each other in public. So we're saying now at the end of the morning, Lag Baomer, we're connected to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai saying that we would prefer to die to be thrown into fire, and this is the fire, than to humiliate someone. So we're fixing the sin of 24,000 by showing and expressing it. Yeah. So that was on Friday came out.
Now that the band, we can't have them anymore. Now we can actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's bad. I know. Ra'anana they're not allowing any fire. Crazy.
It's not gonna happen.
Kids are gonna do it anyway, right? Yeah, no, it's not. It's not fair for the kids because it's really something they enjoy doing.
They could arrange it.
Right. Like Biro Chametz, they have excluded places. Right. No problem. So we see you.
Usually I can.
Yeah, so I don't know why they're not segregating places for set places.
I think last year, Baomer, even though this was the fire had opened.
Yeah. Could be. Well, I think they're ready to conserve the pollution, but no, much smaller. Yeah, much smaller. 16,000 they're allowing us. Allow. How many are going to come? I don't know. Yeah. Not going? Wow.
The buses that they usually have are.
Oh, there's a tremendous trauma there.
And all the boys are all doing Shalvim, who are the ones who lost their student, are doing a concert and a Lag Baomer evening with Shiurim in memory of the boy who was killed.
Wow.
And they invited every voice. Wow, that's nice.
Wow.
So they know,
Amazing.
Too soon for them.
So it's more local. Yeah, I think it's smarter that way. By the way, the Chassan Sofer, it's easy to remember where he writes this in Orach Chaim Reish Lamed Gimel, because Lag is in the Siman there, Reish Lamed Gimel. He writes that the reason he didn't come to live in Israel, Chassan Sofer was living around 300 years ago in Hungary. He says one of the reasons he's not coming to live in Israel is because of Lag Baomer, because he's so against the fact that everyone goes to Rashbi and then does all these fires there. They also used to, almost like Avodah Zarah, they used to throw.
200 years ago?
Yes, 250 maybe. They used to throw in the fire, they used to throw good stuff like clothing and vessels of all kinds to show how much they adore Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that they're willing to give away their goods, their valuables for his sake. It's like, what's about the Zara? And he said, if you would make Aliyah, it wouldn't be proper that a gadol like him, a Talmid Chacham, huge like him, wouldn't join the crowd. It would seem like he's a kofir. So that's one of the reasons he wouldn't make Aliyah. Because of Lag Baomer. Unbelievable. Wait, so let's wait a second for the brachos. So do a little bit of tefillah, drop of tefillah, and we'll get to the brachos. That's your question gladly. Okay, so let's go to the tefillah session. Just a few words. Actually, it's good we're starting this next bracha after Belamanshim Tikva ala Hatzadikim ala Hasidim. It's a little bit more positive than the previous one, even though we explained that there is shine really. Not only are they're meant to be punished, but they're looking to be punished. Meaning, inside, deep inside, the neshama of a Rasha doesn't want to live, doesn't want to exist. So it really wants to leave the world. But that's maybe they don't even realize that. Anyway, ala Hatzadikim, we have a whole long bracha. It's one of the longest. It's I think the second longest after Shema Koleinu. Maybe if you count words, even la Hatzadikim could be even larger than Shema Koleinu. So we're really showing how we express our positive attitude towards the good ones, towards definitely. They complement each other. That the Rishayim we get rid of, and then the Tzadikim flourish and gain and are blessed and all that. Definitely, joined together. And we also explained with the tribes as we're going through every bracha, we're trying to find a tribe relevant to the bracha. So we explained that Menashe and Ephraim are the two tribes resembling the Malshinim and Hatzadikim, because the Malshinim was added on later, the days of Shmuel HaKatan, as we explained, and Menashe and Ephraim were added on tribes because they were first Yosef as one of the tribes, and then it became two instead of one. So Menashe or Ephraim were added on. So it makes sense that they should be resembled by these two brachos. We said we can view any one of them as the getting rid of the Rishayim, and any one of them as blessing the Tzaddikim. There's a way to maneuver between Menashe and Ephraim. Some Chazals show how Menashe was a great tzaddik, some show Ephraim is a great tzaddik. So both work out. Choose whichever one you'd like to be resembled by these two brachos. Anyhow, what does the bracha tell us? Ala tzaddikim ve'ala chasidim ve'al ziknei amcha beit Yisrael ve'al plitat sofrei ve'al ger yatzeg ve'aleinu. Yemo achamecha Hashem Elokeinu. We're asking for Hashem's mercifulness, achamecha, abundance of mercy. Yemo achamecha means that there'll be a lot of mercy from Hashem upon these people. Tzaddikim, chasidim, zikainim, sofrim, gerim, and us, all the rest. So let's just explain a few of them now, and next time we'll continue on. First of all, what's the difference between tzaddikim and chasidim? What's the difference between the two? So one could explain, that's not, I think, the correct explanation. One could explain that tzaddik is a person who's ben adam l'makom, and chasid is chesed, ben adam l'chaveiro. So the emphasis of a tzaddik is ben adam l'makom, and the emphasis of a chasid is ben adam l'chaveiro. And we see that personality-wise. Some people are gung-ho to do chesed their whole life. They're exploding with chesed. They have Rabbi Levine, they have Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, these type of people that just gave and gave and gave. And you have the tzaddikim, which are more to themselves, meaning they're more into Torah. They learn day in, day out, all day long. Of course, they're good people and they're nice, but that's not their emphasis. Their emphasis is to stay indoors and learn and learn and learn, and do tefillah and do tefillin all day and all that. So we have different people who emphasize these two angles of the Torah. But I think more correct is the way the Mesilas Yesharim explains to us the difference between tzaddik and a chassid. In Mesilas Yesharim, we have the different levels, different steps as we climb the ladder of worshiping Hashem and climbing up from level to level. So a tzaddik by the Mesilas Yesharim is a person who does everything correctly according to Shulchan Aruch. Every single halacha, spends his time doing what he's supposed to, not wasting time. Of course, refraining from every sin, any sin. Tzaddik is strong in observing everything. Something that can be really achieved because ein tzaddik b'aretz she'asato v'lo yecheta, says Shlomo HaMelech in Kohelet. There's no such thing as a complete tzaddik, but that's what he strives to be. A chassid is one step beyond that. How can you go beyond fulfilling every single halacha and every single mitzvah, refraining from every single sin? So it's called lifni b'shorat hadin. You have the deen, you have what Shulchan Aruch tells you to do or not to do, and you have lifni b'shorat hadin. That's a chassid. And he does beyond, above and beyond the Shulchan Aruch. So he's more accepting upon himself all kinds of chumrot that aren't necessarily halacha, strict halacha, but he accepted upon himself anyhow to do them out of love to Hashem. He says, I don't want to even come close to doing something wrong in your eyes. Or to do good in a manner that's not written in Shulchan Aruch. It's above and beyond what Shulchan Aruch asks you to do. So he's looking and seeking to do extra. That's a chassid. After doing everything the way he's supposed to, he does extra good. Whether it's ben adam l'mako or ben adam l'chavero, both ways. Meaning the tzaddik is both and the chassid is both. Just the tzaddik does what he's supposed to, and the chassid goes beyond. Now, the Mesilas Yesharim in chapter 19, the very famous chapter, it's called Mishkal HaChasidut. That chapter Messiah Shem is extremely important, and we sometimes lose it when we're trying to go on the level of a chassid. Mishkal Chassidut means balancing, to be balanced as a chassid. Sometimes people will try to do more than the Shulchan Aruch, extra. They don't realize that on one hand, they are doing more. On the other hand, they're doing much less, because sometimes chumrah de'at yedei kula. Sometimes you go on in all kinds of chumrah ways, but then you're missing out on other issues.
Or you can be such a and separate from work.
Right, also not good. Right. That's part of the meaning of what I meant to say, that sometimes you're such a chumrah person and you're insulting someone or acting in a way that's weird and causing chilul Hashem. All kinds of things like that. Those are terrible sins for those who think they're doing much more than they're supposed to. Really, they're doing much less on other angles. You have to be balanced. That's called mishkal. When they used to weigh things by having one side of the scale, one side of the scale with the weights, and the other side with what they were buying. So only when it was even, that's when you knew how much it weighs. Old time scales that we used to use before the electric ones we have today. So when it's balanced, when it's even, then you're in the right place. So even out, balance out your chassidut. So you shouldn't be overacting in one way and then doing bad things in another way. So, so to be a real chassid, it takes a lot of work to know exactly when to do the chumras, when not to. By the way, speaking of brachos, I just had yesterday's men's class, and we're also doing brachos. We returned to brachos that we had done many years ago, and for many years now we returned to brachos. Yeah, some of them are still remembering some points here and there. Yeah. But it's always good to review. Yeah, it's always good to review. So
I didn't realize you started. Explains why David is acting so good. Every time he's finished eating, he's asking me questions. I'm like,
oh yeah, about brachos?
Yeah.
Good.
You're communicating them all. Great.
Yeah, hope somehow you're able to compare notes and get to the right way. Anyway, so the yeah. So I was going to say that it says in the book, we're using a different book for the bench here called Shalmei Bracha. It's based on Shlomo Zalman's teachings only, precisely. So it says there that Shlomo Zalman used to hide his special ways in halacha and in Torah, meaning people didn't notice that he's doing something different than they in all kinds of ways. So he used to hide it, meaning in public, he used to do like everyone. No one knew what his real level was in halacha and how he conducted his halachic life. But except for one area in life that he made it obvious where he's at, and that's brachos. He took it so seriously that everyone noticed what level he's on when he was saying a bracha. To say a bracha properly, as we studied many times, each and every word, to pronounce it clearly and out loud, and have the kavanah in mind what this word means. To say a bracha that way is different than most. And most people, unfortunately, barely move their lips, mumble something, and eat very fast and don't think of the words they're saying. But to say clearly, slowly, out loud with kavanah, one notices that this is a different bracha than normal. So in normal, he wouldn't do such a thing. But for brachos, he decided that that's something that he wanted to do. Everything, all brachot. And also the Borei Prei I call the Abid Varo, Borei Nefashos. Every bracha, he made it obvious that he's on a different level with the brachos. And the reason was because he was so concerned with the low level people are with their brachos. Because they're so neglecting. So much neglected the issue of brachos. They decided this he wants to show their way, shine brightly, so that people learn from him how to say your brachos. Anyway, so that's the tzaddikim and that's the chassidim. So we could say that we're climbing up and up. First, tzaddikim is a little bit lower level, then chassidim is a higher level. So we're climbing from level to level. Ve'al ziknei amcha Beit Israel. Okay, we'll just do this one because we have to go to the Berachot. Who are ziknei amcha Beit Israel? So the zkeni doesn't necessarily mean the elderly. In the Torah and in Chazal, zakeh doesn't necessarily mean elder. Zaken means zeh shekana chokhmah. The Talmidei Chachamim. So a tzaddik can be a person who follows Shulchan Aruch. But it doesn't mean that he knows the whole Torah and he's spending all the time learning Torah. And even a chassid, who we said is a higher level, which is a person who does lifnim mishurat hadin, he does more than you should, according to strict halacha. Still, it's not a Talmid Chacham necessarily. To be a person who's so careful, does it, and he loves Hashem so much that he does extra. It doesn't mean he knows the whole Torah and he spends all his time learning Torah. Ziknei Amcha Beit Israel are the Talmidei Chachamim. Those who spend their time learning and they're really absorbing Torah, they have great, vast knowledge of Torah, that's the Zkenim. They're not talking about the elderly. Because just the mere fact they're old doesn't make you on a certain level of that you should be blessed more than everyone else. The age doesn't necessarily mean you're greater than tzaddikim and chassid, especially if we're deciding that this is climbing to the next level. So after a tzaddik and a chassid, a guy who's 89 years old, doesn't mean he's greater than the tzaddikim and chassidim. But a person who absorbed a lot of Torah and spent a lot of time learning Torah, then he's on a higher level. Yeah. No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing to do with today's term of Hasidim, right?
Some of them might.
Right, so there might be, but it's not necessarily right. Right. Yeah, that's their mitzvah, right? Okay, so, and notice that it doesn't say Ve'alas Kedim. Why not just say Ve'ala Tzadikim, Ve'ala Chasidim, Ve'alas Kedim? Here it says Ve'al Ziknei Amcha Beit Israel. So this shows what I just said before, that the Talmidei Chachamim, only if they are Talmidei Chachamim of Amcha Beit Israel, they're worthwhile. If they care about Am Yisrael, if they're connected. Because if you're learning Torah all day long, but disconnected from humanity, it doesn't have so much of an effect. And it's not the best way to learn. If you're a person that connects to people, to human beings, and you teach them the Torah you learned, Halomed, Amenat Elamed. So you care about Am Yisrael, then your level is very high. But if you're just learning Torah alone somewhere in some room and no one knows you and no one hears about you, there is a level of that too, that you, the holiness that you bear spreads good, it spreads holiness to the spirituality to the people. There is such a thing. Speaking about Kabbalah, from Shur Bar Yochai, Kabbalistically, it definitely works that way. That there are sort of hidden roots in the world that we don't see, but they happen. They're there. That influences happen without speaking to someone. You're influenced just by the fact that someone lives in the neighborhood or learns Torah somewhere in a closed-in room. There is hashpah of that type, but this bracha tells us that the greater hashpah, the greater Talmid Chacham, is the one who's connected to Amcha Beit Israel. Ziknei Amcha Beit Israel. Connected, then your Torah is even greater, a higher level of Torah. Okay, so we'll stop at this. We have a long way to go with this bracha. It's a long one, but at least it's a nice one. It's a positive one. Okay, so for brachas, yes, Sarah. Okay, let's speak about that afterwards. Yeah, you want to hear about it? Okay, it's a question. Sarah's a question of Rikas Agomel. Okay, so let's hear.
Driving back from Yerushalayim, we drove separately, so I had kids in the car, and we felt some shaking. It stopped on the side, looked at tires, everything was good, but we're on Highway 6 going past, the car was shaking, and all of a sudden, tire blew. The cars are going very fast, 10 o'clock.
Wow.
We managed to get over to the left lane.
Right.
But still, then cars were zooming by. A patrol stopped us, saw us, and then basically called the police because said it's a very dangerous spot. The police ended up stopping all the traffic.
Wow.
So we could get over to the right
Yeah.
and then get off the road, so we could close the entire Highway 6. We could get over to the other side. Eventually we got over, changing tire. So that's the whole story.
Of course you bend your coat.
Nothing happened.
Right,
But
exactly.
I said,
No,
so I said, I don't think that.
Right,
Right. 2 weeks ago,
Right.
she was about to cross the road. The light was green for her.
Yeah.
And she put her foot.
Who's this?
in the
Your
road.
daughter?
Esther,
Esther, yeah.
Shabbat, and the car just
Wow, zoom through?
red light. Didn't
Red
even
light?
hit a brake, nothing. But if she'd taken that step, she would have been hit by the
So
car.
this
Oh,
wasn't
yeah,
the part that I thought maybe
But she was
is the
told she
part-
doesn't bend.
Right. When
The
something
part where
almost
I-
happens, it's
Right,
not.
but the part where I thought maybe was the tire did blow and I was there in the middle of the highway and couldn't move, davening that I just am able to get over to the side because
Right.
I wasn't sure I could.
So
But
obviously.
So I'll tell you another. I'll tell you again.
Like I was-
So I'll tell you a few things you could do. But firstly, you're most of you here are right that you don't say Gomer. Why? Meaning, I'll give you an example even worse than all these scenarios you just told us now, and you still don't say Gomer. Shlomo Zalman has in the Halichot Tefillah that if your car spins, you're twirling around for some reason, it spins around, even turns over, but you're not injured at all. In the end, nothing happened to you physically. The idea of a gomel is that, yeah, I remember, right. So, say, Zaman says only if you were hit in a way that you're injured, it really hit you, and then and you're saved, and the hit has to be in a way that could have killed you. Meaning, if it's just a slow hit.
There are four different categories, and those are under the flying and then
Yeah.
You're not getting hurt.
Right. So those are the categories. It's hard to. It's really like a Xeris Akasim. It's like those four. Chayavim Lodot. Right.
They're like four things. So this
Right.
all falls
Crossing an
under,
ocean,
the second
right?
half
Flying
falls
is-
under its own difference. It doesn't
flying
fall
is
into-
crossing an ocean.
I know. I have a friend who lost her mother based on what just happened to Sarah on the highway.
Wow.
It's such a miracle that nothing happened.
Wow. No, it is a miracle. But to say the bracha with Shem Hashem, we only say it if we were hit in a way that could have killed us and we were hurt, and yet, okay, but could have is not enough.
About the washing machine?
Yeah. And that's a famous saying from
No, I know.
Rav Aviner, yeah.
That's how I was so sure of the answer.
Right.
Because my wife almost put me in the washing machine.
Right.
You remember the message?
Exactly. That's a good way to remember it. Correct.
Rabbi Don was asked about saying the same type of story as
A story that sounded
they
like
almost
you
got
would think
into
was
a car
obvious.
exactly like this, but because they moved back, the bus wasn't there, whatever. And then
Right.
basically he said no, and the person kept pursuing, and at the end he said, thank God his wife didn't put him into the washing machine with his
With his
pants
pants.
on.
Yeah, that's a
He
joke,
was
but,
second more,
right.
or he almost would have been.
Shlomo Aviner said that years ago. Right.
Could have, but it didn't.
When her car turned over and they all looked out alive, that's the
That
biggest
was
miracle.
That was
the
different.
situation.
That was some of them into
I
the
don't
mouth,
know.
but other,
That was
but then
different.
we didn't,
That
I
was
spoke to you
really-
about that after, but when we asked then, when the car actually flipped over, and also one of my daughters was bleeding, wasn't so bad, but the
So if she
windows
was
were
hit,
all
she-
smashed. For that, we were told to say.
To say, yeah, that's closer to it because something really happened. Right. But yeah, like Shlomo Zalman also spoke about years ago, and unfortunately we've had many since then. But there was a terrorist attack in Yerushalayim, right across the street from the Dor in Safra, Safra, where an Arab came stabbing several Jews. I think 5 were stabbed then, standing in a bus stop. And then there was a 6th person standing right there, right next to the 5 others, who wasn't stabbed. He was going one after the other stabbing, and then by the 6th one, he decided to run away, and he ran away. Hope he was caught afterwards. But the sixth person asked him to say a gomel because he was right there and he could have just decided to stab him as well. And the answer was no, because after all, you weren't stabbed. Those who were stabbed and came out alive, they say gomel. But the one who wasn't stabbed, even though it could have been that easily the next one online, but he wasn't actually in the danger in the end because nothing happened. So that's the idea. It makes it a little bit more stringent when this is the bracha, but I'll just say what can be done in such cases. A, it's tzedakah, to give a little bit more tzedakah than usual. Tzedakah tatzili mavit, so if you were saved, so it's nice to give tzedakah, extra tzedakah money. And B, the birkas hagomel we have really every single morning. When we say birkas hashachar, the end of Baruch ata Hashem hagomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. That we say hagomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. In general, more like in a plural tense of all Klal Yisrael. So the next morning or one of the next mornings after this happening to someone, they can have in mind while saying this bracha that incident that happened. That's a way to thank Hashem with the words hagomel, just to say it that way. Yeah.
I'm not looking.
I'm not saying it's just a
Right.
natural reaction to saying God when you.
In general, you should also know, I don't know why this is true, but in general, women, it's not customary that they say hagomel except for birth, for giving birth. It's the only incident that they say hagomel in. I don't know why.
Because only they kept dying from it.
No, I understand why they say then, but why not in other instances like this? Or let's say chas v'chelek would have been something really bad, and she would come out alive. So why wouldn't she say hagomel? Only by birth.
I'm saying they did only for birth. So many women died only in birth.
Okay, but then no, but only they had also accidents. They also had accidents.
You vote your will out before you gave birth. That's how many women died.
Right. No, I get that. But if there was a car accident, if there is a wagon accident back in those days, and the woman was trapped and hurt badly, and then say life was saved, why not say go for that too? So it's for some reason customary only for birth, only for giving birth for women. I don't know why. Today, women say gomel for other things also.
No, I think if they don't, they just don't know or they don't do it.
I don't say a lot of them.
I don't say
If
about
you
it.
don't want someone not to say,
I know you say you don't say.
Neither do I.
That's what I know. That's the custom. That women don't say it. I don't know why.
Maybe I should have had 5 C-sections. Maybe that's
Just to make you feel better, I had 6 foot, so it's not connected.
Yeah. No, but like for flying.
Like 2 minutes.
For flying, men say a gomel. Why don't women say a gomel after flying in the overseas? I don't know. Anyway, that's the custom. Okay, let's continue our brachos hanenin session. We'll now go to specific examples after all the rules we've done. And by seeing the examples, it remind us of the rules. These are very, very frequent type foods that come to our plates, and it's good to know what the proper bracha should be. So, first example is moussaka. Moussaka is chatzil, eggplant with stuffed in with meat. Stuffed eggplant. Oh yeah, I think it's more Sephardic. It's a Sephardic food.
I think it's
Greek? Ah, wow. Moussaka is Greek? Okay. So, what should the bracha be? So, in this case, we have a mixture of the eggplant and the meat inside. If you would ask someone, what's the main food you're eating? Is the meat. Of course, the eggplant is just a surrounding. Oh, that makes it more complicated. We'll get to that in a second.
Peppers and rice and stuff.
rice in the zona.
No, it's mizonos, but it's not the 5 grains, right? So, okay, but we still need to take that into consideration. What bracha should we say when it's with rice as well? So, first of all, we said as a general rule, whenever you have a mixture of foods that are eaten together, and here definitely you put your fork in, you're gonna have the eggplant, you have the meat, you have the rice, everything in the same fork, same mouthful. It's all mixed. We go by majority. Doesn't matter what you consider more important. The majority is the more important food, and the minority is the tafel, is the secondary food. So if the majority is the eggplant, even though it's just stuffed eggplant with the meat, but you say only ha'adama, pri adama. Okay, so it's more meat, then it's shehakol. It all depends on the majority. And if the rice, right. Sometimes the rice is the majority over the meat in a stuffed pepper, so you say mizonos. Not because mizonos covers everything, but because the rice is the majority. What? No, thank you. Just nasal because of the change of seasons. My nose always tells me when we're changing seasons. It knows best. I don't need the forecast. Okay, so that definitely works. But it seems uncomfortable to say Berachot Adama over a stuffed eggplant when it's the majority. After all, you definitely feel the meat is the main food here, the main component. So in such cases where we have combinations that on one hand, the strict halacha goes by majority. On the other hand, we see it's very obvious and different types of foods here. We see the meat separately, we see the eggplant separately, we see the rice separately. Each one is significant on its own and important to us. So in such a case, we're allowed, because of the Chaye Adam, we said views this differently altogether, because the Chaye Adam holds that whenever there's a combination of foods and each one is nikar, what's the right word for nikar? Not seen, but significant, but also like separate looking. We see each one of the types of food. It's not a combination that we can't tell what's in there. We can tell each food what it is. But to Chayada, we do not go by majority. We need to say each separate bracha for each and every food. So that we do not hold like the Chayada, we hold like the Mishnah Berurah, who says we go by majority. But if you feel better, and it's also a good option, it's not that you're doing something less good. It's a good option to decide to say separate brachos for each component. Dama for the first mizonos for the rice, dama for the eggplant, and shehakol for the meat. As long as when you say the bracha, you take just the piece of that food that you say the bracha. You make a mess.
It's getting very difficult to
Rice you can't do.
It's inside.
It's inside.
The rice you can't do. It's the meat versus the...
Okay, so say shehakol and hadama. Right?
No, but the rice and meat.
Hadama and shehakol.
You're saying not to make the mizono?
If it's combined so well that you can't see it, it's like a mush, then you don't say the bracha for it.
You could
Even the Chaye Adam.
You can't separate.
You can't just get that on your
literally have to separate.
So even the Chaye Adam would not say to say a Sarah bracha for that, unless it's the majority. If the majority of the rice over the meat, then you say mizonos.
If the majority was the rice from the meat, then you'd probably be able to separate.
No, but it's still.
And don't say
Not
the
necessarily,
shahakol.
but you
If
just
you had a lot of rice,
But then you wouldn't-
They would say shachal, right?
Right. Yeah, you don't need the shahakol.
no, it wouldn't. But it wouldn't be also. It wouldn't.
That's why he said if you find it in a cheap place, it's all rice. If you drop with meat.
Yeah, right. Or go to these shivot and upinot. They have a majority is the rice. Sheep. Right.
If you do that,
Right.
then the main thing isn't the meat anymore.
Right. And it's so well combined that it's not separate like the Chaye Adam speaks about. So again, majority always is fine to decide by that. That's the easiest rule. Check what the majority is and do the majority. But if you feel like, let's take another example. Let's take another example which could show us this. Ofi Yerakot mukpatzim. Mukpatzim is like fried. Stir fried? That's the word? Okay, first time. Stir fried.
You wouldn't eat
Okay.
it, so not healthy.
Depends how much oil. Maybe. Right.
You make it, Amy, will be healthy.
Right.
To the catering home without stir fry.
Yeah, those are filled with grease, right? It's real oily. Yeah, right. So you have combination of different sliced or cut up vegetables, and chicken. Pieces of chicken also combined in the Yalkot Bukpatzim. So what bracha should we say then? So again, it's the same idea. What's that?
So the guest, I'm like Monday night or Tuesday, send me that picture she made.
Oh, yeah, I made that. She sent that to me.
She got so nervous. I was like,
I said, wash.
before your class, I would have done this Zono, but I don't know.
Why would
There's
you send me
so much
Zono?
pasta, right? With all the
was-
Wait, we're not doing pasta yet. Pasta is another.
It was me. I'm the guilty
I got so
party.
nervous. I don't even want to answer.
What's that? Tova is here. She's
Oh,
I
Tova.
sent a picture to Chani and to Sarah. I think to Ora also. Like, help!
We can't eat in peace anymore.
Yeah, what bracha to say over this? So we're not talking about pasta yet. That's another example. But first, just combination of vegetables and chicken, pieces of chicken. So again, majority counts. You can say hadam over the entire mixture, and you're fine. Because even in our hose, it would probably be the majority would be the vegetables versus the pieces of chicken. But since they're, again, very separate, you can tell the difference between each one. So you could also do separate brachos. As long as you take on your fork, only hadama, only one of the vegetables, and then only a piece of chicken, you say separate brachos, and then you eat them combined together. Because of the chay, it's easy to do, and because of the chay adam, who says that's what you're supposed to do. So though we don't hold like him originally, but if you prefer doing it that way, perfectly fine to do it that way too. By the way, when you don't know the majority, if it seems quite equal, in such cases like the case we're talking about now, then what do? So you can also, again, separate, take one of the hadam, one of the shakol, and you're fine. But if you want to make one bracha over this whole mixture, like halachically it's also okay to do, but you don't know what the majority is. The favorite? No, you don't go by that. In this case, right? No, but that's only between eitz and hadama. Only those two. Not between shehakol and hadama or zonos. So the answer to that is you say the bracha more inclusive. Let's say if it's hadama and shehakol, you say shehakol. Hadama and eitz, you say hadama. Bezonos and shehakol, you say what? If you don't know the majority, you see it looks like 50-50. You can't tell what the majority is. Like a fruit salad that has a lot of pineapple pieces and banana pieces and some fruits as well. So if you can't tell what the majority is, then do the more inclusive. Yeah, that we said, that's hadama. That's hadama. But again, you can also pick out each bracha separately and say the bracha separately. No, so he said because of the Chai Adam who says that you should, so we're allowed to rely on him to get out of the situation. Both work out. Both work. Both work. Both
What
work.
would you do?
What I do,
It's like
I'm more connected, right? No. This I don't mind at all because it's not a lower or higher level.
We have to talk to him about it after we all finish attacking it.
Yeah.
I just want to know what you would do.
No, so
What is better? What is something that?
I'll tell you what I would think I would do. If the pieces are very, very visible on their own, very visible, then it's hard to say one bracha for everything because you see the separation. Like let's say if you have a cholent without challah, you haven't washed for bread, you haven't getting a weekday sometime. There, or for kiddush, right? So it's sure to see chunks of meat, chunks of potatoes, beans, all the things that are inside there. We're not talking about grisim, barley, which is a whole other issue of mizonos there, and then that covers everything. But without that, so it's very difficult to decide to go by majority. You're having chunks of meat. Let's say the majority is hadama. How can you not say shehakol? Like, that's what I'm saying. The feeling is you go by the feel.
But then I'm
If you feel that it's what?
Say what Ricky said because we've been in this year a long time and he's been telling us then why wouldn't you make 2 brachos on your cereal and milk? It's
But
not
we
cooked
do.
together.
Cereal milk?
It's not cooked
Because
together.
there-
Even more so, it's separate, and I'm sitting there and I'm eating chunks of cereal
Right,
and drinking
and
milk. So
drinking
why
milk.
wouldn't I make 2 brachos?
So we said, if the amount of milk is so significant that you're really quenching your thirst by drinking that milk, then for sure make 2 brachos.
Right, but of
We
course,
said that if you're just wetting your cereal by a little bit of milk, just add some flavor to the cereal or make it a little bit more moist, then you don't say a bracha.
Right.
It all depends exactly on that, exactly on the significance of the components here.
right,
What?
but we definitely
We
said.
did. We said that Rifki and Chani could make the
Right, I'm
But
sure.
not everyone else can. But now Sarah's saying everyone can.
I'm saying what
They may
Rifki's-
not put as much as me, but
You
they
could.
put an amount that it's a separate food.
I'm
and it's
saying what
obvious.
Rifki's saying, everything we've been learning until now about bracha shein and tzricha, and if you take it in one bite, you shouldn't be dividing it.
Right.
Now we're saying, unless you can, then you can.
If you can, right. Yeah, that's true because it's not bracha sheina tzricha because of it being so separate and to its own. Each piece is to its own. You can do that, but that's what I'm saying. Feel the situation. Feel if it's something insignificant or significant.
This is why they teach you to do it the way they teach you.
Right,
Because
right.
otherwise you end up not saying the bracha, and if you do say it, it's safer. It's
It could be an
basically
extra
safer
bracha.
than doing it the other way.
Right.
This is also why.
So,
when
but
you
then
have
also
lunch
in
in
the
school-
tortilla, if you're totally confused, you're better off saying the 2 brachot at the end of the day.
Right. Tortilla, we said, had a filling of
Tortilla was
meat.
never eat a tortilla again in your life, but besides that,
Yeah.
No, in the end, what we said was,
you have
if
to
you.
avoid-
if you
The
have
zonos
trouble-
definitely need to say because it's
Right,
even
and
it's
then if you
minority-
have trouble-
minority.
Let's say you have the shopful, but if you have trouble telling what the majority is, then separate it and take each one.
right. Or say the more inclusive bracha over the combination, one bracha with the more inclusive one. So
We
those
just
are ways.
definitely learned in this year that there are times where you shouldn't make more brachas because it's a bracha shein that's right.
Correct. There are cases of such, like no. Let's say if it's an obvious tafel. When is this concept true? Don't make extra brachos. When it's an obvious tafel, it's obviously secondary too. Here we're talking about mixtures that are quite the same of different types of foods. Nothing is tafel to the other.
Like the cracker and
Well,
herring.
the
Sorry, I
meat
keep
in the
going
jar
back.
could
The
be
cracker
tafel.
and herring. Let's say you're just eating the herring for the cracker.
you don't make the bracha on the cracker.
That's
Okay.
what you told us, but I don't understand now with this. Why is the mizonot? We said the mizonot is never in the tortilla situation. We
Right.
still have to make the mizonot.
Right, because the importance of rizonos, that's specific to rizonos.
Yeah, so
The
why-
importance of
so
the bracha
cracker-
doesn't get
so
nullified.
the cracker and herring. We were
Also-
not to make
No, it depends. If you're using the cracker. No, if you're using the cracker as a spoon or a fork, you're just holding on to the herring, but all you care is the herring, then don't make a bracha
So I'm
over.
just using the tortilla as a key to eat my meat and vegetables, maybe.
Not so sure. If it's that the only reason you're eating the tortilla. Isn't it also to add more taste?
No, it gives a crunch, so does the cracker to the herring. I don't want to eat the herring plain. I like having a little crunch to it. But really,
So then you have to make a bracha.
So they need to make a bracha.
you like it.
If it's just to hold on to the herring, you can't find the fork, so you use that
It
to
sounds
hold
like you
on.
make the bracha. The only time it's done is if you eat something so spicy and then you just need something to break it and die, then you don't have to. But besides that,
Right.
it sounds like we're back to making our brachas.
Right, but I don't feel like that's what we learned.
No, because no, let's say, yeah, a little bit of meat, very little bit of meat, bits and pieces.
No,
Right.
but cholent is also different because it's put together with an azana. If you have barley in your cholent, the whole that's rub. But also, who eats cholent and doesn't make
Kiddush.
Kiddush,
Yeah, kiddush, right?
If you eat it for leftovers during the
Right, I don't, but yeah. But cholent is almost, most cholents are made with barley, so cholent's gonna be in the azana. Something's cooked together
Right,
and it has
but
an
even
azana.
right, but even that, true. Mizonos covers if it's cooked together, baked together, it covers everything. The alarm went off. The alarm went off.
That's a
No.
That's a sprinkler.
No, you can't. Don't touch it.
Opening.
I know.
Magic.
Are you getting wet?
It's the.
I'm just pulling it.
Yeah, that's the fire alarm.
Yeah, the fire alarm.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's how it works.
So
Very, very cool.
Nice for the breath.
Yes.
It's fun then.
Otherwise, you can't open that window.
I know, but I don't.
Yeah. The smoke or something, with the cooking. Right. You have to stop the alarm because otherwise the fire engine will come.
The sprinklers don't go off in the basement.
Upstairs, in the on the right hand side where you go up, there's a luach bakara. No,
Outside of between the women and men's section?
right there on that wall.
And what do you put?
There's some button to push there. It says it on there. See if you can tell. I don't even remember what it is.
They like making pancakes or something. They don't even
Right.
realize
It makes smoke and
But they also probably don't even hear.
No, all the men in there are like going to the.
they're going in that area.
Trying to-
No, they're hearing it hard.
I was home on Friday. I was standing over the pot. I just didn't realize it was so much smoke. I was standing
Wow.
over there. My
So
alarm.
you say your alarm also?
Absolutely. And
Wow.
my alarm comes and phone me straight away.
Wow.
And Esther comes over.
What's going on here? Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, yeah. So let's just finish this point. By the way, even by Mizonos, this will throw you off totally. Even by Mizonos, we said even if it's a minority and cooked and baked together with all the other foods, it's Mizonos. Covers the entire food because it was cooked and baked with the Mizonos. But even then, the Chai Adam still holds the way he holds. That when you see separate foods in the mixture, you can tell the difference in each one. Even by Mizonos, you're allowed to take separately.
It's kind of hard. You have to look.
So if it's mushed children, then don't say a separate bracha for each
But we
different
don't
type of
hold like
food.
the Chai Adam. It's just saying if you want to, you can.
Exactly. So Mizonos covers everything, even as a minority, if it was cooked and baked together. But the Chai Adam would still hold that you can make a separate hadama, shehakol, over the other foods in that mixture. So if you would like, you can follow him as well.
My
Because his
vegetable
opinion
lasagna is back to being the zono.
You're what?
My vegetable lasagna, where you see those big pieces of zucchini and eggplant, it's still
Right.
Zono.
You can.
It's a Mizonos, you can, but you can also say separate. Right. That's the idea. And we can follow him as well if we prefer. So I said for myself, I decide for each and every food on its own whether to do the separation trick
So the Chai Adam-
or just say one bracha.
Chai Adam doesn't make a distinction between something being cooked together or not being cooked together like we do for Mazon.
Correct. For him, it doesn't matter. For him, it's just the idea: do we see them separately or not? Right.
You do like in day school and make a Mazon. I make a Mutzi adventure for every meal.
Right. That covers almost every situation. Okay. Very lastly, kinuchim becholakim bekos. If you have a dessert of a cup, a plastic cup of a dessert that has a third of whipped cream. Yeah, so they press the right button there? Okay.
That's the reason why we press the button.
Okay. Otherwise, otherwise the shul is fined by a lot of money. If the fire engine comes, pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I know.
everywhere.
Okay.
Certain amount of times.
Right. Anyway, last case. We'll finish with this. And then we actually finish this discussion of this type of Rov and Miut, right, mixtures. And that is a dessert. Maybe you have one outdoors here for the bris. A dessert that has a cup, plastic cup with a third of whipped cream on top, a third of fruits, cut of fruits, and a third of cookies or cake. They have a separate layers and layers, one on top of the other.
You want to go bring in some dugmaot? That's where
No, it's different than the cheesecake because the cheesecake was baked that way. This was just placed one on top of the other. That's the difference. The cheesecake is baked in layers, and then it's mizonos over the entire piece because mizonos overrides everything when it's baked together. But
Yeah, but in a cup you can.
yeah, but that's right. But that's for a cheesecake. Yeah, better to touch firstly, to take firstly from the crust on the bottom because you're saying mizonos.
But you can't do that when it's in a cup.
Yeah, but if you take the whole thing, you're putting all of it.
Oh, now this wasn't baked together. This was just placed on in layers, one on top of the other.
No, so now
So you have to dig all the way down in order to get to the mizonah, and then you eat everything there. Right. So if it's hard for you to dig all the way down, then it's the case that's not simple to eat the tafel over, say, the brach of the ikar without having the ikar on your spoon. So we're going to get to that soon, eventually in this chapter as well. But in this case of third, then here it's definitely it's definitely correct to say three brachos, three separate brachos. As you get to each one, shehakol, ha'etz, and mizonos. You don't need to, because we don't make you go out of your way for the order of brachos. Like a krembo is also not baked together, so it's shehakol and mizonos. The biscuit is mizonos, so it can use shehakol. You don't have to get to the biscuit first and take a bite to the bottom. No, it's not even necessary, because the sequence of brachos doesn't override the comfort of eating it normally. Eating normally, it's okay, even though you're changing the order of brachos. What's that?
I said if you open your Oreo.
Yeah, right.
And then it's the hardcore.
No, but the Oreo, that's very, very secondary to the biscuits.
Except if you open
it and actually, just eat the cream, right. Then they say shehakol, right? But otherwise, it's anything you spread over something, right? Anything you spread over something is considered secondary to the thing you're spreading it over. Like if you have rice cakes, those prichiot ores. So you put on cheese, tchina, anything you put, tuna, anything of that sort. You say only hadama with the entire thing, because anything is spread over something, the surface is considered the ikar, unless it's just holding on to the tuna that way. But it's usually not that for that reason. That's not exactly like spreading. There, you have a whole chunk of food, right? But you have a whole chunk. It depends, right? If it's just a small layer, you're right. But if it's a big, if the chair is filled with stuff, then it's not just a spread. Then you pour it over with a lot of stuff inside. Then it's more than a spread. Like if you have a whole tuna fish can on one rice cake, then you say separate dama and shehakol. That's for sure. But if you're just spreading a thin layer of cheese or of tchina or of tuna on the rice cake, you say only hadam. That's definitely secondary to the rice cake, giving it some taste, giving it some flavor. That's all it's there for. But if it's heaping a big amount on top, then you say two separate brachos. And each one is separately important. Okay, stop at this. Shavua tov. Take care, everyone.
Shavua tov, thank you.
Shavua tov, gladly. Call to. Bye-bye.